Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Move, a show where we share transportation sales and marketing success stories. I am Jennifer Carpus Remain, Executive Director of the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, which is a trade nonprofit educating and connecting marketing and sales professionals in transportation and logistics. And today on the show, I'm very excited that we have Nicole Glenn, founder and CEO of Candor. How are you doing today, Nicole?
Good. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here and to get to interview you and learn more about you. I love doing these interviews because you know people, you've met them, you've talked to them, but then you get to do like a deep dive and learn more about them. So it's always fun. So you began your logistics journey back in 2000 in operations, and then you kind of rose through executive ranks to launch Candor Expedite in 2017. Correct, right? That's what I got off your LinkedIn.
Right. Yep.
Yep. So
That's
I'm
accurate.
curious, kind of what pivotal moment led you to take that leap? Like you've been in the industry, but no, now I want to start something myself.
Well, there was a company that I worked at. It was called K&L Freight, and it became like this intangible child to me. I was dedicating my life to getting on the road and then managing people. And it was one of those things that I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I mean, when I was like 18, 19, 20, I was going to my dad with all these different franchises going, Dad, look at this one. Look at this one. Maybe we could do this one. Can I have your retirement monies? And he was always like, get out of here.
No.
Right? No. So it was one of those things that I kept pressing, but there's just sometimes that it's not the time. It's not the place for the person that owns the company, so it was a really, really tough decision. I still love that company. I'm still very close to the owner. But it was one of those where I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to get very uncomfortable and spread my wings. And the funniest part was that's what I thought I was going to do. And then I went and worked somewhere else. And then I worked there for a year. And then it was finally like, okay, no more. Stop being so scared. Actually do this. And so then I actually took the leap and became an entrepreneur. And it was, kind of surreal to me at first.
Mm-hmm. What made you kind of go to take the leap and take that step back and then finally convince yourself it's time?
Oh, man. I mean, I think something that I've just always wanted to do. It was one of those things that I've been working towards. I had these little mini companies that I would make. Like there was one called Everlasting Image where, like you would go to anniversary party in the early 2000s and you would see like on the screen all the pictures of the family and music playing. And I was like, I could do that. And so I started that type of company and I just kept researching different things that I could get into. And so I don't think it was a matter of if, it was when, right? So the actual leap part was more of, okay, I think I'm just ready. I kept asking for the opportunity, and I would go, okay, what is it? We'd sit down to a meeting, we'd go have a lunch meeting, and it was like almost my review. And I would go, what is it that I need to do? And it was, you need to learn more. And I'm like, how am I going to do that if I don't do it? Right. And so I think it was just these tiny little like seeds that just kept getting planted. I did fall in love with managing people too. So I think that was a big spot. I would always been operations, then sales. And then sales teaches you to be like greedy, right? It does. It's like, go out there, get the business, make the money, all the things. And then when I actually stepped back into operations management and had to actually have people underneath me, then that transition from just me to them, and watching them grow. It was hard, right? It was kind of a struggle on some of the things, but when they would actually like take that step or do the right thing or be proud of themselves and, hit a goal, there was nothing like that feeling. I was like, okay, this is like multiplier now. You're not just this single person, that's trying to do something for themselves. And so again, like, I think there were many, many moments, right, that things would happen and I would go, okay, like I would learn how to read a P&L and start getting more on the financial side of things and start understanding insurance. And so there was just always this working behind the scenes of running the business that I got to like taste. I wasn't fully in charge of all the things. But it was like, okay, I got that. And I was probably cocky in my head going, I do this, I can do this,
Mhm.
but I did. But at the same time, it's like anybody who you probably have in this seat, they go, I just kept continually learning because whatever I knew then was definitely not enough. And whatever I know today is definitely not enough. And so it's just that mindset of what else can we do? What else can I do to move this forward? So again, I think it's just tiny little things, little teeny tiny seeds. And then I don't know what happened one day. It was just, I went, you know what? And it was kind of a win, Jennifer. I was like, I have to resign. He had gone on a trip. He would go on a monthly or a beginning of the year trip. And he came back. And the day he came back, there was like this gnawing feeling. And I'm like, I love you, but I gotta go. And
Mhm.
so I did. And it was really hard and sad, but at the same time, it was a great step for me.
I think it's always funny how we never really know what's going to be those steps or those things. And so many times it's the opposite of what we think. Like, as you were just telling that story, I was thinking about like, I always had the entrepreneurial bug too, but was always terrified to do it. And then I previously never wanted to be a mom. But then when I got pregnant and I was working like a 9 to 5, I was like, oh, this is not going to be flexible enough for what I need to do when this baby comes. And I resigned in my third trimester. And then I started my own company. And then I started with like project based stuff. And then I got into software stuff and then eventually got into transportation and then it took me to TMSA. But it's funny because I don't think my career would have catapulted the way that it did if I didn't cut the cord to 9 to 5 and like really pressure myself. And I always thought that like being a mom would minimize my career, which is why I was hesitant to do it. But like really being able to find the way to balance motherhood and professional life is what pushed me to be a better professional. So it's like always funny because you don't anticipate those markers, those pivotal moments to be what they end up being. It's always something totally different.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, it's one of those things that I think we have expectations on every life situation, every career decision, and we build this story in our head, right? And then you actually start living it and you're like, wow, that is not at all what I expected. But again, I think everything is what you make of it, right? So you had made a decision, I had made a decision, even though you don't know what you're hopping into, you just go, I have to make this work. I have to do this. And I don't even think you say that. I think it's just this tiny little behind the brain pressure that, you just do. You just go, okay, there is no other choice. This is what I'm signed up for and I got to go forward. And you do all the things you can to make your baby grow in every way, life
Absolutely.
and business, right?
Yes. And
Hmm.
so when it was time to then launch your own company, you named it Candor. And
Yeah.
I heard that was because there was a lack of honesty in the industry, not everywhere, but pockets of it. And you wanted to make sure that your company didn't represent that. And
Yeah.
so I love that so much. And how has this guiding principle then really shaped your brand and your client relationships?
It's so funny because I was cleaning out my notes in my phone the other day and I saw the names of the company. It was in 2016, beginning of 2016, that I had started writing company names down. And it said Candor or something along the lines. And so the idea was when I wanted to step in this space, I mean, like you said, there is dishonesty like peppered throughout, being a brokerage firm, the driver ultimately didn't end up taking the load. Oh, he had a flat tire. Oh, this, oh, that. And so I wanted to be able to approach clients not only with honesty on that, but I also wanted to approach the clients on honesty on what's not working in their business.
Hmm.
And I wanted that to be like, to have these discussions that would actually make them better for themselves. And so, most people go, ooh, you can't tell a customer what they're doing wrong. You can if it's something that's going to actually be constructive and maybe something they just don't know, right?
Yeah.
They don't know that something could be better. They only know what they know as well. So then, obviously hiring individuals, joining our team. I remember we had one lady, she was like, I'm just going to tell her the truck broke down. And I was like, or you could tell her the truth. That's who we are. She couldn't believe it. She was like, oh, wow, I have to. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how we operate. And so it's a core value that we celebrate. It's we want to show up doing the right thing. There's times you have to have tough discussions and discoveries of things, but then there's also the goodness of bringing the honesty part of everything, because then people have the ability to be heard, right? Because the word candor, if you look it up in the dictionary, it says blunt and forthright. And so sometimes blunt could be rude, but it doesn't have to be, right? It can be, this is what I'm experiencing, or this is where I want to go in my career path at this company, or this isn't working in the organization and it's preventing me from being successful to our customers. And so, we talk about that every single meeting that we're having between sales and ops themselves, sales themselves, because that's the whole thing. We're all a domino. I tell my team that all the time. Like, if we can't be aligned and sometimes bringing in the heat, right, to make things actually move, then we'll just be stagnant and be the same. And so that domino effect is, by whatever that person does, it all affects everybody else. So I think we all need to be open, honest, and aligned on everything that we're trying to do.
And so over time, then Candor has grown from expedited services to final mile solutions. And I think that really reflects an adaptability, which I think is great. That's a lot of what our benchmarking studies have shown, that that's how people are keeping business in the market, is being able to adapt to customer needs and really show up in the ways that they need them to. So I'm curious, what kind of signals or client feedback kind of guided your company's evolution throughout the years?
I think that you need to be able to say yes. Now, not yes to everything. If someone comes to me and asks me to do something crazy specialty flatbed, I'm sending them to Liz Wayne at Able Transport. But, if there's something that's relatively close, or it's something operationally that I've done before, or different teammates, we'll talk about it. So we had the white glove thing was kind of interesting, because we were quoting this government type of company. And so we give all these rates for these sprinters and straight trucks, and he comes back to us and he's like, you're double or triple the price. And I'm going, that can't be possible, So, because I know that we're a competitive company. And so I'm like, how are you actually routing this? And so then he's like, oh, we do these sweeps, and this freight, even though it's classified as expedited, because it does need to get there, it's not moving exclusively. So there's other freight on the truck. And so instead of saying, okay, yeah, sorry, we bid that too high, we were like, let us have a chance at that. Let us quote that white glove. Let us quote those types of shipments. And so we did. And then we started, just talking to different companies and clients, and then, building out a full white glove division, and now have installs that we're doing. And then we've added on air freight. We're doing truckload. But again, still staying in that niche, like you want to still be who you are, but at the same time, not always saying no to your customers, and dissecting, like, is this something that we can service and service well? So I think it's really asking your teammates, like, how do we feel about this? But then also being honest with your customers. There's been times that we have customers that come to us and we're like, we've never done that, but we totally will try. And this is how we have to approach it. So I think if you're open and you're asking for the opportunity, and then you put something behind it, I think people are willing to give you a chance. And then that organic growth comes. And then you just keep learning more and more on how to keep going.
Absolutely. I think that's really important. Like, you still want to know who the core of your company is and the best ideal customers that you serve, and then figuring out how to be agile and adapt to those two things without like changing the core of those two things. Because I do see, people want business, and so sometimes we will then step so far out of what we can do. Like you said, can we serve it this and can we serve it well? Which I think is such a key piece. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things we can do, but is that going to come at a cost to us? Is that going to make our reputation in the market bad because we were really bad at it because it was so far out of scope of what we do? So I feel like those things are really important and a really smart approach to how you did that.
That's why I even said, like a specialty flatbed, because there's been times that we'll get somebody that reaches out and says that. And my thought process is if I can't cover it again in the middle of the night, or I don't know where to go, I don't have people in my cell phone directory that I can reach out to, I really don't want it. I really don't want to do it because then it's like I'm stuck. I'm a fish in the water, just dead
Mhm.
right there. We can't recover it. And so I think that's the important part. And if you find somebody that joins your team that has all that ability and they're like, yes, I can do that, I'll then go interview the carriers. I mean, last week I was in Chicago and I'm going to see companies that we want on board. I want to meet the owner. I want to understand what they stand for. And so again, it's when you step into something new, educate yourself,
Mhm.
and ask the right questions so that way it can be as successful as possible.
Mhm. And you guys were able to kind of maneuver all that even through the height of the pandemic where things were really complicated and really disruptive and really needed change and fast. How were you and your whole team really able to remain agile and pivot the way you needed to then?
I think we just rolled up our sleeves. I mean, I think that's where we identified that there were issues out there for some of our clients. So I've started Candor Cool Chain in regard to that as well. So we saw some obstacles that our customers were coming to us with and some of the prices that they were paying. And I literally would go, there has to be a better way.
Mhm.
So even though at the height of everything going and growing, it's one of those things that you should always be focused on solving, right? So if someone comes to you with a deep rooted problem that affects the industry, spend that time, right? Spend that time to learn who's out there, network yourself. And I think that's a big piece is the networking side, right? Because we are as good as the people that we can talk to, mentor us, lead us to the next things. And so I spent a ton of time during the pandemic, like networking and finding out how can I do this? Where can I do this? Give me your insights. So it became learning, mentorship, networking. It was a great time to really dive into that, especially when we were stuck at home in the
Mhm.
beginning.
Yeah.
That's when I went like full force. Like, what else can I do? Who can I talk to? And so I started doing a ton of reach outs and asking audaciously. I remember going to Kevin Nolan, who's way, way bigger than, myself, especially at the time of like starting up this business. And I'm like, can I have 15 minutes? And he was awesome. He's like, of course. So I think it was a lot of that. And then, I mean, constantly talking to the team. What do you need? What can we do? What do you need? What do we do? So I kind of miss that chaos. It feels like everything's kind of slowed down now.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like this you had a much more productive time. I made a lot of bundt cakes. Like because I had a bundt pan, but I was like, who actually uses this? And so that's
That's
how
how I
I
always make a cake. Only cake I make.
it's so because it's so delicious and it looks
Yeah,
so nice and you don't have
it
to do the full
does.
frosting. Like, it's
Right.
so much better.
I know. And it cuts well.
Mhm.
Just, yeah, you
It
get the
does.
nice triangle right there.
Yeah, they're so
Uh-huh.
good. I make like a good banana bundt cake and I have like an apple crumb one, and then your normal like
I
vanilla and
will say
chocolate.
I do one non-bunt and I make a homemade from scratch Tres Leches cake. And it is incredible.
That sounds
Incredible.
incredible.
Yeah, I'll have to share the recipe.
Yes, please do. I do a lot of cupcakes because I've somehow become the master of the cupcakes in my family. I have to make them all, and they're not like easy. So like, and I make regular cakes too, but they don't like my son for his birthday. He like specifically wanted a Minecraft cake, and I had to make like the diamond sword that like sat on
Dang.
top. And then
Wow.
my one niece, so I know all of the flavor profiles of my nieces and nephews. She doesn't have a flavor profile. She wants everything to be rainbow. So I've like actually made like a 7-layer rainbow cake with like she then always wants Fruity Pebbles as the sprinkles. It's a lot. And then, yes, I will be hosting my niece's 11th birthday party, and she's read all of the Harry Potters. And so it will be a full Harry Potter, like Welcome to Hogwarts. And I have to make her
You have
cake
to
and stuff.
share these pictures. That's
I will.
incredible. I know
I
there's a
will. I
ton of
actually,
work.
yes, this has been like the fun fact. And like slowly, like throughout my time at TMSA, people have learned this about me. And they're always like, please, all of these photos. Yes, I've made like a Minnie Mouse dress. I one the year of COVID, there was a lot of poop emoji cakes. That was like they really like it really embraced that because they were little and couldn't see anyone.
Yeah, I did do one time where I made a bowling ball and a bowling pin,
Oh,
and I
that's
thought that
cool.
was pretty impressive for me
That
to do
is
the
very.
cutout.
I
Yeah, I was
think
like,
my
"Look at me go."
favorite. So the one year I made a dragon, and then I made homemade donuts, which was my favorite because my sister's like, I didn't know Dunkin' Donuts had this flavor donut, like because they don't. It's homemade. But I made then the dragon was in a castle, so the donuts were the outside of the castle, and then I got those little like chessmen cookies that have like the
Oh,
knights
those are
and
pretty.
stuff, and so
Yeah.
like they stood on the outside of the donuts as like the castle. And then like Oreo cookies were helping to make like the ends, like the sides of
Oh,
the
like
castle,
the
like the
yeah,
towers,
that's
if you will. And
yeah.
all of the kids ate all of the non-homemade cookies and the donuts, and then just like the whole dragon cake sat in the middle, which is fine. But
Oh.
anyway, I got really
Yeah.
excited about baking there for a minute, but I do like how much you talk about like being growth as a leader is like growing yourself and growing your team, and how when you started your company it really became this move from being selfish, like I'm a salesperson and I'm making all the money and doing all the things, to being a selfless leader and teaching everybody how to do that. So how has that really shaped who you are as a company, and like what kind of feedback from your team do you get from that shift and that type of leadership?
Well, I mean, we have a great culture. So I mean, we do surveys, we don't, and everyone seems to be happy. I've definitely watched people grow into those types of next step roles. Like we had someone that came in for HR, and she's now our general manager. She's phenomenal. So the feedback that I get is good. I would love to have more, right? I would
Mhm.
love to have more feedback, and I would love to have more people be vocal about what they want, because we have a lot of people on our team now that they're operators, so they're like moving freight, and then you'll throw out an open position, and you really won't get a lot of people applying internally. So it's one of those where I think you have to just keep talking and asking the questions. And we've tried to really further map out people's roles from when they start. Like we will start people as like an operations specialist. So and it's funny because people will call that like an entry role job, but it is literally the backbone of our business. It's how we
Mhm.
communicate to our carriers and our customers all at once. It's tracking, it's issue processing on, what's going on here, escalations up to leadership. And so I think it's treating every single position and showing them the importance of that role, but then also being like, hey, you need to get uncomfortable a little bit. You're ready for that next thing. So if I can give people advice that are listening, it would be, ask for those next things that you want to do. Don't be afraid to say, this job is where I think I am gonna stay, unless say what you're looking for. Interview the company that maybe you're starting at and going, how is that progression? So
Mhm.
I mean, it's something that we're trying to continuously do, encourage people. Like, don't be afraid. Apply for that account management job. Apply for that CSR position. And then we also do some things where we start like almost internship programs. So when you go and say ops specialist, you have the ability to become a CSR intern. So then you're learning different things. So I think it's bits and pieces at people. But again, I think the feedback's good. I don't. It's one of those you as the owner you have an idea, you hear
Mhm.
things, but then you also see all the things. So there's been times where I'm like, did I deliver that message too harsh? Did this come out this way? And then, my leadership team is always like, no, we need to, so it's, I have no words when I say
Mhm.
that because, I think we always second guess ourselves as people. And, I sometimes I'll be like, man, that had to be really hard for someone. And they're like, no, I learned from that. Thank you.
Mhm.
You pushed me. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that leading with candor, it's really important. And I think there's a lot of volatility in our market right now, and things are really confusing. And like, I just always prefer when people are blunt and honest and tell me what I need to know so I can move forward. And I think there is a authenticity and an honesty with that people can really appreciate, because we're all weeding through all of the other stuff right now. And so being able to do that, I think, is really important. And I was actually going to ask you too, like, with all of that in mind, how do you build, like, what are the most critical leadership traits for building a resilient team and culture? And it sounds like part of that is just having that transparency and honesty within your
yeah, I
company.
mean, we share financials with our team. Everybody knows where that is. They know the great days, the not so great days, because it's been crazy. Like you said, it's like, I feel like we do this right now. I would love for it
Mhm.
to just be like this, but it's very much. And so walking through that with them, right? So we're all in the same boat and we're all trying to hit those goals and climb. So again, it is tried and true, that transparency. But then it's also like spending time with people, and making things matter. So we really try to encourage our people to have a voice. I don't know if you've ever heard of EOS. It's
Mhm.
entrepreneurial operating, that we operate our business on that. So everyone sees we all have level 10s, which is the way that we are very organized. So we're not meeting crazy, right? But we have those set meetings. They see their metrics. They have their own scorecards. It's, again, showing people what they need to do to be successful. And one of the things I wish I would have done earlier was maybe not be so nice in some things, right? Maybe be more focused on the accountability piece, because it's kind of like your kids, right? I know for me, if I don't sometimes go check to make sure my kids clean their room or made their
Mhm.
bed.
Oh my God,
Yeah, mom, I got it.
got to test that toothbrush.
You
It's
do.
not
And it
wet.
keeps
You didn't do it.
Seriously, yes. And sometimes I know that sounds so funny to think that you need to do that in business, but everybody needs sometimes a little check, a little
Mhm.
accountability check. So that way they go, okay, right, this is how we do things. So I think it all starts with accountability, transparency, and then again, really trying to invite people to the conversation, so that way they're heard. And I think that's probably the biggest positive feedback I can get is when people go, I feel really heard at this company.
Mhm.
That's to me important, right? Because I don't know everything. I don't even know 1/10 of the things. None of us do, but it's, some of the people of living the day to day or have been somewhere else that maybe had a different process. So when we say the candor way, we literally go, the candor way is the evolving way.
Mhm.
So there's nothing that's just, and that's it forever. We're always trying to evolve, and I think letting people be a part of those building blocks it's important for them.
Absolutely. And I think too, like, if somebody listening to this is afraid to do that accountability check, like, just remember that it's not that you are doing it only because you don't, like, quote unquote trust your employees or something, but like there may be a disruption in your training process in which the people don't know that they're doing something wrong, or they're not equipped with the things that they need to be successful. So it's also part of yourself as a leader of being accountable that you've given them everything that they need to succeed. Because if they're doing it wrong or not the way that they're supposed to, it may be because there's, a hiccup in the system and not just because they don't want to. And so that accountability goes for everybody when you're doing that kind of thing. And I know that, like, for employees I've had, they've appreciated when you've done the accountability check, because they're like, oh wow, I don't know what I don't know, and thank you so much for explaining that to me or teaching me an easier way to do that, because that just took me twice as long to do it my way. And so I feel like I know people get scared to do that or don't want to do that because they don't want to not be nice or whatever. But sometimes it's really just making everybody more efficient, more heard, and being able to move forward better.
Yeah, when we do annual reviews with our people, we are going based upon the core values that we have. But then there's also the bottom section. It's just two sections. Rate yourself on core values and then rate your manager.
Mm.
So, and it's not, the manager piece is more question based, where it's like, do I have all the tools to do my job properly? Do I have one-on-one meetings? Do I feel heard in the organization? And there's no anonymous there. And there's a reason for that, because we do anonymous surveys sometimes.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I feel like that is something that we need to do, is speak up. And again, it doesn't everything, because even if you had to say, I don't feel like I have all the tools, that's not bad.
Mhm.
And I think that's the way that you have to kind of look at it, is be open to that self-assessment yourself, and
Mhm.
go, what else can we do to lift people, lift this environment? And I think, again, we keep saying the word truth. That's where it
Mhm.
all
Yep.
stems from. Yeah.
And I obviously love all of these pieces of what we're talking about so much that I'm very excited that you are going to be our keynote speaker at our upcoming executive summit, which will be October 22nd through the 23rd in Chicago. And that session is titled Leading with Candor, Building Resilient Teams and Culture in a Turbulent Transportation Economy. So I'm so excited. Like, even just talking with you today, I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good, because it's the things that people are afraid to talk about or afraid to push a little deeper on. And it's all the things that we should be doing now. So I'm so excited to have you there. What are you looking forward to for the executive summit?
Well, I've never been, and
Mhm.
I've seen this for several years, and I've always said that I would, but, I want to actually experience going to it and hearing some of the other speakers and getting to see some people again. I feel like
Mhm.
I've been going to a lot of more customer focused things.
Mhm.
So, people will be like, hey, are you attending this? And I have not. I've been in that lane. So to get back in a network and to see people and then just learn. I plan to be at the entire thing and hear everyone else speak too. So I'm excited to deliver this too, because as much as it is, some insights, I do want it to be like a conversation. I want to
Mhm.
get everybody involved and hear what they think. And I think it's going to be a great time.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, we are offering a coupon code so you can register at events.tmsatoday.org and you can use the code MOVE to Summit 10. And again, that is the Executive Summit for TMSA, October 22nd through the 23rd, where Nicole Glenn is our keynote speaker. I'm really excited about it. I was really pumped. You are one of those names that we've tossed around for a while, being like, oh, do we think that we could get her to come speak at a show? And when you responded almost immediately with a yes, we're like, ooh. And
I think
so
I told you the day before, I was talking to somebody and she was like, you need to get back out there and put yourself back out there. And I'm like, you're right. It's been a minute, and then your request came and I'm like, I seriously think the universe heard me and
mhm.
heard our conversation, because it went, no way. I immediately like text her. I'm like, guess what? Like, and she's like, so funny. We just talked about that. So it's great.
So I think it'll be amazing. Well, I appreciate that you're coming to Executive Summit and that you spent the time to talk with me today on the Move. I have one last question for you, and it is the question that I ask everybody who comes on the show. And that is, if you could go back in time and advise a younger Nicole anything, either personally or professionally, when would you go back to and what would you tell her?
Ooh, I would probably go back pretty far. And I would say, I would. I mean, I don't even know, maybe like junior high, high school, and just say, fear is not real. And
Mhm.
it's something that we make ourselves. And we need to just keep marching towards it, because we make our own fears. And if we just pull back some of those and just go forward, you can have the biggest life that you want. You can
Mhm.
craft out what you want.
I think that is great advice, both for your younger self and anyone that's listening. I love that question. It's such a diverse answer. Like, most of it is like, going back to our younger selves to be like, yeah, don't be afraid, just push yourself, like it's going to be okay. No one thinks they're great, like everyone's
Uh,
faking it, like all that kind of
yes.
stuff. But like, and so I hope that our younger listeners realize that us older, more seasoned professionals still don't know what we're doing. We're still pretending to get through it, but we're just, more confident in admitting it now.
I agree. I literally agree. I just wrote a post on that. So funny.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Our guest can join us next week where we talk to Augustin, who is with Mitsubishi Powers, and he will be on our shippers panel at Executive Summit. And he is such a breath of fresh air, always has great things to say, and excited to have him at the show and at the Executive Summit as well. So thank you again for joining us. Excited to see you in Chicago next month, October 22nd to the 23rd. See you then.
Thank you, Jennifer.